Welcome to another exciting episode of Training Transformers, where we dive deep into the evolving landscape of corporate learning and development. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with the leadership from Money Vehicle, executives who are not just observing the transformation of training, but they're actively driving it. We'll explore the innovative approaches to training. How did they scale their operations, strategic insights that are reshaping how organizations like Money Vehicle are actually developing their education and training programs? So today we have two very special guests from Money Vehicle. Jed Collins, firstly, he's the CEO and founder of Money Vehicle, and Teresa Seiler, she is the VP of Operations heading there at Money Vehicle. So welcome to the show, Jed and Teresa.
Very excited to be here. Always appreciate the opportunity to share the message and the mission, and excited for the conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much for having us both today. We're really excited to speak about our process and all the amazing things that are happening in training these days.
Very glad to have you guys here. So firstly, starting up with your journey, Jed, let's start by understanding your own personal lens. Uh, how did you get to where you are at Money Vehicle right now, and the transformation that you have seen so far? Could you share a few insights?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's obviously one that I, as the founder of Money Vehicle, love to share. Truly, it started about 15 years ago with a paycheck and a problem. I walked out of college into the National Football League, the NFL, and got that first paycheck. And everybody looks at a professional athlete, the size of those checks, and says, "Ooh, they're going to be fine." And the reality struck me that my problem was I had no idea how to speak this language of money, how to take this paycheck and make it go to work for me. And the truth is, it doesn't matter if you're, Jed the football player, if you're going to be a doctor, a teacher, or really any career, schools and education didn't prepare us for that personal financial journey. And so 15 years ago, I went out and set to empower myself. I went and studied the books, our American gurus, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, Robert Kiyosaki, until I got challenged to become a certified financial planner. And during my 7-year NFL journey, each offseason I was studying for those exams. And as I transitioned out of the game, I went into the world of wealth management. I went in with the experts of how to make money go to work for you. And as I did that, I began to see my passion grow, not so much for helping wealthy families, but truly seeing a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, back the Jed of young, handling their first paycheck. And so my passion grew for how do we translate and transform this language to that individual. And so for the past about 10 years, the last decade, my sole focus has been how do we create a curriculum that can go into schools nationwide and bring this language and message around speaking money and making money go to work for us into the classroom. And so it's been a long but fun journey, one that has challenged me as an entrepreneur, as a creator, but truly it is something that we look at what is needed and vital in the United States today specifically. We need to speak this language. And as a country, we are now evolving and updating our education to require a class that looks just like Money Vehicle for graduation. And one of our big issues, and something we were going to talk about today, is how do we take this message, scale it into classrooms across the country, and more importantly, empower the educators. But that personal journey has been a long time coming, and where we are today as a nationwide education technology company delivering financial literacy, I could not be more proud.
Oh, that's been quite a journey, And I think in terms of you stating that, the courses for financial literacy have just begun in the schools in the US and universities. I think this is a global problem. I think
Absolutely.
I think they can be used everywhere, for sure, because this is the kind of education that actually we don't get when we are in schools and universities. What to do with your money,
Yeah.
what to
And
start earning. I mean,
not to jump ahead, but as we look at AI and technology today, how Money Vehicle will become a global curriculum and a global program is utilizing transition tools that have never been had before. And as we look at going into new languages, going into new customs, new accounts, we can transition these same core principles, the same concepts and foundations of financial literacy into many countries, into many languages. And that's part of what we're so excited about, is that opportunity just continuing to grow.
That's fantastic.
And
And all the power
yeah,
for that.
no, it's so exciting to hear, because I hear from from both sides in education. If I go back into my history, I started out as a language arts teacher in the high school level. And so when it comes to literacy, whether it's speaking a language or whether it's financial literacy, literacy is that core skill to be able to comprehend what the information is and then be able to spit it back out in real life applicability. So what happens with language and that transition to financial literacy is we're actually teaching those skills in the classroom to be able to become real world actions. And so that's one of the exciting things about Money Vehicle and what we're doing here today, is we're actually taking that language, giving students new words, new vocabulary, a new skill set, and then being able to watch them go out into the real world and change things. And so it's really exciting to be able to see how training and education has changed, because when you start off in a brick and mortar classroom, you start out with a textbook, you can see how the students are a little bit more disengaged because it feels a little antiquated. It feels a little bit old for them. But the new advances of technology and the new ways to bring in artificial intelligence and virtual reality, and being able to explore how videos work in a classroom, and seeing how attention spans change as well. We've gone from a sit and get classroom where a teacher would be up there lecturing with her finger on a big podium, to short 5-second clips and 30-second interludes with our students, because we have to be a little bit dynamic in that and adapt to what our students are transitioning to. So it's really exciting to see how the technology can help us change that style as an educator, because many times we're not really trained exactly how do we deliver that message. And so one of the great things with Money Vehicles, we get to meet so many amazing teachers and be able to support them through that process as they're transitioning, learning new content, and then being able to deliver it. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this time.
That's great. And I mean, you must have started small, obviously, Jed, but like going ahead, how did you scale your operations to maybe reach out more schools? And did you use any digital mode in order to, reach out to the students, make the content more engaging and interactive for them? What kind of technologies did you use for that?
I'm going to hand it to my director of operations to jump on that one, and let her run with it.
No, so this again, it's so exciting because we be able to let's start with a book, right? So your Money Vehicle starts with a book, and it even starts with iterations before that. And so you're able to take a PDF or a book, and you want to share it, right? We traditionally would go to a library or we would go to a bookstore and we would purchase that book. But nowadays, what we have is the ability to license that content. But the challenges with school districts or with industry, you want to be able to get it out there, but then you also want to be able to turn it off. So you want to be able to issue a license and be able to issue a model where you can actually still, as an organization, be profitable and be able to change and edit. So let's just imagine think about science. Pluto becomes a moon, and then all of a sudden it becomes a planet, and then it goes back to being a moon again. You want to be able to edit and change things as it happens. So what we're able to do is we utilize the platform KITABOO, and we're able to take a book and we're able to issue it out to as many students and teachers across the nation, across the world as we can. And we're able to click just a few buttons, and all we need is basic user information. And what's wonderful is that we really strive, I think, as educators, to protect students, to protect data, to protect the integrity of education. And what you basically need is you need a model to do that. And one of the things that's been so wonderful, it feels sort of like a snap of a finger, but it hasn't been. It's been decades to be able to get to a place where we can figure out what kind of delivery methods work out. And this is one of the really exciting partnerships that we've been able to create is with the KITABOO team and the software, because I have gone through, I feel like it's many lifetimes. We start back of creating PowerPoints, and then we go into sharing those, and then we try to utilize systems like Dropbox or SharePoint and be able to share them all over the place. But what the key is how do you get a training model in front of a user on any device? Are they utilizing a cell phone? Are they utilizing, because training organizations and schools can't control the devices completely, right? We can try to say, all right, we're going to standardize that process. But the truth of the matter is every school has different dynamics. Every organization has different firewalls, different technology infrastructures that they implement. So what you basically need to find is you start at the beginning, and then I like to use the word reverse design. What is your goal? Are we trying to get to a zillion people out there? Are we trying to get to 1 million? What are we trying to do? Let's look at that and let's take it and figure out how to start, right? And I think that this is where I'd love to give it to Jed to give it an opportunity. Jed, what would be, if you had to come up with your goal, I know you and I have talked about it over and over
Yeah.
again, but
Oh,
what
yeah.
would you like Money Vehicle to do?
And that is a great question. What is the mission? What is the goal? And it comes back to that word, scale. Again, I'm a former football player. I'm not an educator. I'm definitely not a technology expert. And I got that question as I walked into a classroom. I could teach 25, 30 students standing in front of me. Sometimes those are high school students, sometimes they're professional athletes. But the question came to me about 8 or 9 years ago of how are you going to empower 1 million students? Yes, Jed, you can go room to room, get 30 at a time, maybe 100, but how are you going to empower 1 million people with this message? And it went from, as Teresa was saying, a book, a physical textbook that we have, but looking at it and saying, where is the educator? And more importantly, where is the student today? And so we had to take that physical textbook and make it a virtual experience. We call it the interactive textbook because every page has interactions, has questions, has videos, has text to speech, has different opportunities for you to engage the student in the material. And so the question and challenge for me is, yes, great. You can stand and teach one classroom, and that is my purpose, is to empower a student. But to scale, we had to go and find a partner. We had to go find a group that was going to be able to say, how do you take your message and bring it to 1 million students a year? That was the technology shift. And as you can imagine, Kitabo has been a great partner. But for me, it has been this revolution around that word scale. And the technology word, we throw it around so often. To the neophyte and the novice that I was, it didn't really make sense to me until about a year ago when we were doing the same operations and the same processes, onboarding a school of 100 high school students. And then we began to do 1,000 high school students. We've gone up to 5,000 high school students in one school. But for us, through our technology and through our tools, our operations and processes have remained the same amount of time for Money Vehicle to bring on 1,000 students compared to 100. That was that scale word that really changed everything. And through our partnership has allowed us to significantly grow. And everybody loves the 10X number, have been able to 10X 2 years in a row.
That's
And one of the things I want to add on to that is same thing goes for the training side. Traditional textbook trainings and traditional trainings many times are 6, 7, 8 hours. And as much as I appreciate the thoroughness that goes along with a traditional training, we're in a fast-paced generation. We're in a time where we want to save energy and we want to give that energy and that time back to people in their personal lives. When it comes to education, our educators are struggling because they're underpaid and they're overworked. And same thing with our students. Our students are beat down with testing, beat down with content. So when you can create a training model, and I'll talk about ours in just a moment. When you can get an entire curriculum training in about 45 minutes, and they actually have everything that they need at the tip of their finger, you go from a $10,000–15,000 training that an industry would have to pay in order to get a person to sit there for 6 or 7 hours with travel and all the arrangements and get everybody there, to a virtual meeting that's over in 45 minutes, and then they just reach out. Hi, how you doing? We can do countless touches with our teachers, because we've created a model that is now, again, scalable. And that is so exciting, because we're efficiently giving people their time back. And so I'm so proud to say that.
That's great to hear that KITABOO has been such a great partner with Money Vehicle for reaching out to so many thousands of students. And I'm sure it's going to be 10x very soon of that as well. So
That is the goal.
that is cool. That's great to hear. But like, Teresa, in terms of preparing a strategy for actually reaching out to those students, like preparing your training programs, how should that training be? What were some of the approaches that you used, when you started out? Like, were there any kind of objections from the schools who were trying to onboard these courses? They thought, okay, maybe we don't really need virtual trainings right now. So how did you actually make those points to them?
I love that question, because one of the most important things when you're doing any kind of training implementation is asking what the end user, what are they trying to do? What are their goals? If you look at a school district and they're a little bit, resistant or struggling, that's because you're trying to push your agenda, your objective onto them. So one of the most important things is to find out what a school district or what an organization's primary goals are. And let's look at those goals and then reverse design the training methodology so that it fits. So if we're trying to scale, again, financial literacy across an entire school district, all right, well, let's look at those state standards that are happening within the government or with that, whatever it is. And then we talk to the administration, try to figure out, how does that master board configuration work? Meaning, how did the classes work? And then we start asking questions about the educators. How technologically savvy are these individuals? How much do they use technology in their classroom? How fearful are they? What kind of delivery methods do they have in their classroom? And then we start talking about the students. What kind of students? What levels are they at? Where can we assist with diversity and inclusion and different kinds of objectives? Basically, the primary goal is you really do a thorough check of who the customer is, that end user, who's going to be utilizing the product. So when you start to think about creating that training model, if you create a model where you empower the educator, the person who's delivering the material, so that they feel amazingly confident and good and feel happy about it, and they get buy-in. And that's one of the things that we love about doing within Money Vehicle, is our educators are the ones that are pioneering our next steps. So our content is constantly changing, constantly evolving. We never do it during the semester, so we never change things to disrupt what happens in a classroom. But we give our educators and our administrators a direct line to our team to be able to say, what do we need to change to make this better? The minute that you do that, you adapt for what a school or what an audience needs, and then you get them included in that process. All of a sudden, that's your magic recipe, and you give them technology that works within their systems. So that's one of the things I want to bring up about KITABOO as well, is that every school system, every organization is a little bit different. Do they utilize a learning management system? Are they incorporating Chromebooks or tablets or desktop computers? Do they have Wi-Fi infrastructure? What do they have? And then what you can do is you can adapt your integration with them. Do they not have any technology at all? Well, okay, so we need to figure out a delivery method, just like Jed popped up that, do we have a paper book, or do we have something that we can give them? So I think it's just a matter of reverse designing looking at your audience, and then being able to adapt. And so that just takes a little bit of thought well, I guess a whole lot of thought at the beginning. And then when you go through, you ask them, and then of course, feedback constantly. It's feeling how the engagement's happening, and then being able to adapt that in the real time.
Right. And it does seem that with Money Vehicle, at least, that technology is going to be the backbone of your training programs. So, uh, I mean, along with KITABOO as well, how are you leveraging these digital tools to, bridge that kind of strategy and implementation? Is it like you use any tool for content creation specifically? We know you use KITABOO for distribution, but how's the tech stack looking at your end?
So, from a content creation, we always start in the classroom. So, we start with what questions are our students asking. What is beautiful about the world today is we have two different video editing tools, one to create the core curriculum, and actually one to create the teacher training and the responses. And as we continue to look at moving forward, our technology stack gets to grow with many partners. And these are typically going to be more the destinations for the students. And so, what we learned about the world of money today is it is going virtual. About 5, 6 years ago, students, teachers, even administrators were asking, why is there a cybersecurity section in a financial literacy class? Today, nobody is asking that question. We see the virtual nature of money, and we see the need to be able to respond to the attacks of it. And so, as we look at the technological advances, I personally believe artificial intelligence is going to make a massive impact in the world and the journey of an individual and their paycheck. But then, how do we set up those accounts? The tools that we talk about in Money Vehicle, we teach you how to fish. We do not give you the fish. So to go and find the bank account, the credit card, the investment account, all of those tools are going to be housed with another technology and another partner. And so what we are trying to do is prepare the individual to say, here are the questions to go ask as you take that action. We want you, we encourage you, we show you how to take that action. But as we look at using technology to deliver the tools, we're really arming that individual student, obviously through our Muse, the educator, and allowing them to kind of move forward with it. But the mindset of what, how, why, the what to teach of our standards, the how to teach, as Teresa was talking about, the in-class delivery, slide-by-slide instructions. But truly, every training, every education begins with the why. Simon Sinek, famous for saying, start with the why. You have to have that cohesive nature in your curriculum. How does subject 1 connect to subject 4 to connect to subject 10? And in the training, you have to understand not just the step-by-step layering, but the overall holistic picture. And with technology today, we're able to deliver both that step-by-step individual in a class, as well as a holistic picture of what we want our outcomes to be.
It's great to hear that. And I mean, talking about technologies, you just mentioned about AI. So, the AI revolution is upon us now. It's practically in every other field. So
Yes.
what are you most excited about in terms of emerging AI tech that you could actually use in your training systems?
Oh my gosh, I'm like bubbling with this. It's so
As,
exciting.
as well.
So I have to jump in here with this. So for me, when you start to look at artificial intelligence, and when we start to think about artificial, break down that words, artificial and intelligence. That means that it's changing and growing every single day. So let's start at the company level, right? We want to engage our customers. We want to inform them about our product and about what we're doing. So being able to utilize those technologies during a sales process, during an onboarding process, during a training process, and a support process, being able to have users go directly, whether it's to a website or to a portal, and be able to get everything that they need. We have a lot of people out there who are really diving deep into their own knowledge base. Thank goodness for programs like YouTube YouTube, and all of these self-learning, the libraries of the past. And now what we have is we have an opportunity to utilize these intelligences to be able to create efficient and effective training models. And that is the training for, and I use training in a really broad sense. We have training for our sales teams, training for our customers, training for our partners, training for each other. All of these training models are really exciting. But then we start to look at how do we make it easier for our educators, because that's one of the things that I feel very strongly about. And I think a lot of us feel strongly about. When you're an educator in a classroom, you don't want to be burdened by technology. You don't want there to be this constant fear of, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's too hard for me to work, or I don't know where all the buttons are, and I'm missing out. What that does is it distracts you from being able to speak. It distracts you from being able to engage with your audience because you're too focused on fearing not knowing how to use the technology. So being able to use the technology to train the end user so that they feel great when they walk in front of a group, so that they feel, wow, I've really got this under control. And that's what I'm excited to see, is how can we take artificial intelligence and virtual reality, augmented reality, all of these different practices and amazing things that new creators are creating every day. How can we take them and then make that our end users, ourselves as well? How can we utilize these tools to really upgrade our content, and how can we really change education to begin with? Because I think, is that the end goal of what we're all trying to do? Try to make a better world by empowering people with financial literacy, with skills, with skills that will help them be better humans. And so that's why I'm super excited to be able to see our educators do really well and our students embrace the technology because it's changing their lives. And so I'm
And I,
excited about it.
I would jump in. One, obviously, Teresa being focused on the educator, the training atmosphere. My mind always comes back to our end user, that student. And so, the two major ways AI, artificial intelligence, is going to impact our students as we move forward. The first one you heard me mention earlier in the translations. Money Vehicle, my mission, again, I was dealing with wealth management kids. My goal is to not help wealth management kids. My goal is to help students nationwide, globally, learn this language of money. And to do that, we're going to have to speak many different languages. One of the biggest hurdles we have in schools today is, hey, Jed, we have 8 different languages being spoken on campus. How are you going to address that? Artificial intelligence, for many different ways, is going to help us address who this message was meant to get to, which is all students. We do have it translated currently in Spanish, and we are addressing a new audience there, but the goal is to have different languages available. But the coolest piece, I think, right now, maybe the most upgraded, or what we can do that maybe $1 billion publisher can't do, as Teresa was mentioning, we update the program and curriculum on an annual basis. We have a capstone character project where the student goes through each chapter and we show them and tell them, how and what are you going to do as an action for your character from this chapter. But what we've been able to adopt that with is now using AI based on this chapter on taxes, based on this chapter on insurance. Let's go use an AI tool and prompt the student to start a conversation. They've just got their 101, they've just got their base level learning, their questions, their thoughts. And now you can go and utilize one of these tools using the money vehicle prompt. But what we're most excited about, and we've already started to see, is the students' feedback. I went in, I used those 3 prompts, and I went and started a discussion around credit. But this is where the conversation went. This is what I began to prompt it with and ask it. They, as the next generation, are going to be exponentially better at those conversations than you or I. I think we're a little bit past the innovation phase, but looking at a 17-year-old and saying, you go have a conversation about this topic. Now that you've gone through the curriculum and you have that foundation, those conversations with AI is going to customize and personalize not just financial literacy, but education in general. We never want to replace the educator, the teacher. We do see the challenges and the hurdles, but that last mile connection to the student, I think, is irreplaceable. but we do want to be able to customize it to a student in America, a student in India, a student in Europe, a students all over the world. How do we bring this conversation specifically to you? And we're going to utilize AI to do that.
Yeah, and that's great to hear because you're right. I think the generation that's coming up, they're definitely going to be more AI savvy than we are, for sure. So these prompts are definitely going to help them a lot. I mean, just the other day, I just read an article by someone from HubSpot, the management in HubSpot, and they're recommending that they let AI run the investments because AI can
Mm.
figure out from their financial data what kind of investments they can go and do going ahead in order to make more profits, or what are the kind of flaws that they have right now in their financial portfolio, which is hindering them in making more money. So, AI has too many
I,
potential opportunities ahead. Yeah.
And I love that idea. And we've had kind of target date allocations before. What I love about AI starting to make our investment decisions is something we teach in Money Vehicle. Part of your investment strategy has to be removing your emotions. Now, I don't want to solely and blindly depend on a outside tool or source to do it, but if I can have a artificial intelligence remove my personal roller coaster of investing emotions, that is a great teammate to begin to build that financial plan on. And so as I look at moving forward, it is going to be every aspect of the financial industry, the investments and the advisor particularly. I'm a certified financial planner. Over the last 20 years, we have seen that shift away from your investment broker of the early 2000s, late 90s, maybe the 80s. You'd call them and they would know something that nobody else knew and they would get you into a stock. All of that information is at your fingertips, and AI and technology is getting it at exponentially faster. So how do we as an individual utilize this new foreign kind of topic? We use it to remove our emotions and keep us steady on the financial plan that we're setting for ourselves. This is again why I'm excited to be teaching this topic, the foundations, and then as you build that house on top of it, it's going to be a very, very nice thing to customize.
And
That's
just to add, yeah, to add on to that, basically, I love the concept of it. We want to remove our emotions from different things, right? Definitely from our results and from our grading as well as an educator. But what artificial intelligence can also do is help us personalize education by removing that emotional element. So when these artificial intelligences are really trained well, it's basically creating, if we start to look in the American education system, an independent, there's a personalized education plan. They're called individual education plans, an IEP. So we basically, every single person in the universe can have their own independent and individualized education plan to be able, that's going to be tailored and personalized to what we're trying to do. So basically, we just need to train these models to think the way that our end goal is. We don't want them to think necessarily how we think. We want them to think and assist us in our thinking process. So that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting place right now with AI and so many potential opportunities around, definitely. In terms of now quantifying your business outcomes, like you have implemented your trainings, you onboarded so many school students, you have given them their training programs, they have gone through all of it. Now, how do you actually measure what has been the impact of that training in terms of business outcomes? How do you do that?
Um, I'm glad this is another one that's heartfelt for, I think, any organization and any trainer, any educator. You want to find, and what I think the main goal is when you keep somebody busy, when you track how many minutes or how many hours a person has spent in content or basically seat time in education, that was one of the major items that most education systems looked at. They said, okay, we're spending this amount of hours, this amount of minutes speaking this amount of content, and we were under, I think, the false illusion that that was meaning that somebody was actually retaining or getting the information. I think what's exciting is that now we can look at real time, real world applicability and actions. So we're transitioning from a time period where we are tracking minutes and tracking hours to finding actions. And that's what we can utilize, and what we do utilize within Money Vehicle is we take a content area, and it doesn't matter how quickly or how slow you pick up the content. It matters what are you going to do with it at the end. So what we are able to do is we're able to look at metrics in a different capacity at this point, instead of just tracking finite details, which if you've ever gotten into real metrics, you know that they can be manipulated. You know that you can take numbers and you can twist them to make them work for you. But you can't transition an action unless you see the action. It's there. So there's no argument. And I think that's one of the things that's transitioning and exciting to see is it's harder to work with data at this point, because you see, if somebody is just taking manipulatable numbers, you see it pretty transparently that it's not as valuable. And so I'm excited to be able to see how are we going to take, again, real life scenarios and make them come up to life.
That's great to hear. Yeah. I mean, as we wrap up, I'd love for both of you to, distill from your collective wisdom one powerful takeaway that you can give each one of you for training leaders who might be watching you today on it could be anything, how to grow your organization, how to scale your training programs, how to prepare content.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Yes,
So for me, for me, I would challenge anyone, any organization, any educator to figure out how to drive real world impact. How are we as a society going to level up each other, ourselves, and by doing that, creating a personalized experience? So every educator, I hope, that comes through Money Vehicle or comes through anything that we are creating feels like it's theirs, feels like they're able to take that curriculum, take that training, and make it change for them. How does it evolve their training ideologies? How does it help them evolve as a person, as an educator? How does it give them their world back? How does it give them their time back, their family back? How do we create training and, again, actions that can change the world? And what I really hope is that our students have that same mindset, where if we create positivity and we create positive impacts, that I hope that translates down to our students, to our end users, that they want to make an impact as well. And maybe they can take what they're learning from us today and what you're training and be able to create something beautiful. And so that would be my end goal for anyone who's trying to educate.
Fantastic.
What I love about working with Teresa is our brains work so similarly, but excuse me, as she's been focused on the trainer and I've been talking about the student, I love that her last message is about the student and mine's going to be about the trainer. When I look at training and you look at education, our focus is so often how can we keep their interest? How can we be engaging? How can we be the show? And my challenge and my message and my one thing would be change from ting to Ted. As we look at being interesting in an education, in a training, we are always trying to get that user to look at us with awe and wonder and be inspired. But the real goal of being a trainer and the real goal of being an educator is being interested in that individual. And so if they can have that capacity to understand what message they are trying to convey, but really look at it and say, it is not about how interesting I am, it is about how interested I am in you. I think that would change the essence of your training from what is our thing we're trying to throw at them to how are they absorbing it? How are they digesting it? And going to Teresa's point, how are they going to apply it? So I love that analogy and that concept of going from ting to Ted. it is one that in our world today of virtual, we're down on our phones, it is so much harder to be interested in that person. But asking the right question, clarifying the communication, and really seeing if they can communicate back what you just said. Interested is one of the greatest gifts a trainer can have.
Fantastic insight. So being interested more than being interesting. So incredible conversation. Thank you so much, guys. Truly illuminates the future of financial literacy and training over here. And this brings us to the end of another enlightening episode. Really appreciate you, Jed and Teresa, for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today of Money Vehicle. To our viewers, if you found value in today's discussion, please make sure to follow us for more conversations like these with training leaders who are shaping the future of learning and development. You can find additional resources and information about today's topic on the KITABOO website. That's kitaboo.com. I'm Tejas, and this has been Training Transformers.